Welcome to Middle Class Matters, Business News in English from Dr. CMA ALAGESAN. How democratic is the world's largest democracy? By Digino Mirana. When referred to in the media, India almost invariably gets the attribute, the world's largest democracy. Official documents and speeches by Western leaders, such as the US National Security Strategy or the India-Italy joint statement during Prime Minister Giorgio Meloni's recent visit to New Delhi, also described India as a beacon of democracy in an autocratizing world. While this is partly a historical legacy due to India's remarkable ability to establish and consolidate as a democracy after the end of colonization, it also reflects the country's importance as a strategic partner for the Western democracies in an effort to contain the rise of China. However, today, very few analysts would still describe India as a full democracy, sliding towards an electoral autocracy. The latest V-Dem report, which measures the quality of democracy worldwide, is yet another reminder that India seems to have turned into an electoral autocracy, a hybrid regime where free and somewhat fair elections are still held, while the government employs a variety of informal and formal mechanisms of coercion and control, which tilt the playing field in its favor and dramatically erode freedom and democratic practice. In other words, India still holds democratic elections, but is closer to an autocracy between them. The V-Dem index is an attempt to quantify the quality of democracy, while the measures is imperfect and in any given year hardly meaningful per se. It is hard to tell what is the difference for a country to be 68 or 72 democratic. It does capture change over time effectively. Figure 1 shows V-Dem's most comprehensive variable, the Liberal Democracy Index for India and Pakistan. Three things stand out. First, India and Pakistan's most recent values 0.31 and 0.26 respectively are broadly similar. Second, India's democratic quality is almost as low as during the emergency regime 1975-77, when Indira Gandhi's government suspended elections, jailed opposition politicians and imposed censorship. Third, there has been a steep decline in the quality of democracy in India since the advent of Narendra as Prime Minister in 2014. Other indexes such as Freedom House or the Economist Intelligence Unit also pushed India out of the increasingly small liberal democracy club. But what are the key reasons behind India's democratic backsliding? Undermining the independence of the judiciary and watchdogs. The current regime changed India's political system in at least three ways. First, the independence of key institutions such as the Supreme Court and the Election Commission of India (ECI), which have long enjoyed a reputation as effective constraints on the power of the executive, has been deeply compromised. Through selective appointments, outright intimidation, and post-retirement perks to members, the Indian government has been able to profoundly shape the functioning of the country's most important watchdogs. The Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled in favor of the government in highly controversial cases, such as those involving PM's right-hand man and Home Minister Amit Shah, or the alleged corruption surrounding the purchase of Rafale jets from France. In other cases, the Supreme Court has simply postponed dealing with cases with profound political implications for the ruling party, the Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP), such as the one probing the legality of the electoral bonds an instrument introduced by the PM's administration to fund political parties. Similarly, the ECI has been accused repeatedly of closing both the eyes in front of quite blatant violation of electoral regulations by the ruling BJP. Perhaps even more crucially, investigative agencies have been unleashed to target the opposition politicians, journalists, and the social activists. Since 2014, there has been a fourfold increase in the number of cases opened by the Enforcement Directorate, which investigates financial irregularities against politicians, 95% of which belong to the opposition. Additionally, the Parliament and even the Cabinet have been functioning mostly as rubber stamp institutions, as all key legislation and executive orders have been centralized in the Prime Minister's office. In one instance, the words of the leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi, were expunged from the official transcript. Gandhi's comments on the proximity of the Prime Minister to India's richest man, Gautam Adani, had been quite embarrassing for the government, cracking down on civil liberties. Second, the government has cracked down on civil liberties, particularly freedom of expression and minority rights. The V-Dem variable measuring the former is now significantly lower than in neighboring Pakistan, while the recent decision by the Indian government to first ban a BBC documentary on Narendra, and they then sent the Enforcement Directorate to raid the BBC office made headlines. There has been many less sensational attacks on freedom of expression over the last few years. These included the incarnation under draconian colonial era laws of journalists, students, and civil rights activists, the action of investigative agencies against critical media, the inclusion into the no-fly list of prominent activists who have been impeded from leaving the country, and a crackdown on civil society organizations such as Greenpeace and Amnesty International, both of which shut most of their India operations. In March 2023, several people were arrested for exposing banners in Delhi, asking for the ousting of Prime Minister Narendra, while Rahul Gandhi was sentenced to 2 years in prison and consequently disqualified as a member of the Parliament by a Gujarat court, Narendra's home state, for alleged defamation of the Prime Minister. In parallel, minority rights, in particular those of Muslims, about 15% of the population, have been profoundly eroded. The long list of abuses includes what 3 UN special rapporteurs called collective punishment in the form of demolitions of Muslim properties, condoning of religious murders by the authorities, formal partnership between the police and violent Hindu vigilante groups, and the introduction of formal forms of religious discrimination, such as a new citizenship law that excluded Muslim refugees from gaining citizenship. According to Article 14, an investigative website, the proportion of Muslims accused of sedition increased from 15% on average 2010-14, just above their proportion in the total population, to 30% 2014-2020. Some authors, in fact, began describing India as an ethnic democracy or an ethnocracy to highlight the increasingly pronounced Hindu character of the Indian state. Free elections, but how fair? Third, the electoral process itself has been compromised to the point that it is even questionable whether India still meets the very minimum requirement for a democracy, namely free and fair elections. To be clear, elections remain free, but their fairness is a question mark. Not only is the ruling party able to shape the media narrative through a combination of sticks and carrots like lucrative government advertising, but a newly introduced system to fund political parties, the electoral bonds (EB) perhaps decisively tilted the playing field in favor of the ruling party. The BJP backed 67% of the total funds donated since 2018. The second most funded party, the Indian National Congress, just got 11%. More crucially, the EB allows the donor to remain anonymous except for the government, which can access data through the publicly owned State Bank of India. Not coincidentally, VDAM's Clean Election Index for India has also dropped over the last few years, particularly since the introduction of electoral bond in 2017. Looking ahead, two concluding notes of caution are in order. First, India is not Russia or China. Importantly, extensive pockets of freedom still exist. The very fact that this commentary could be written drawing primarily on India-based sources is a testament to that. But the appellative largest democracy in the world is a relic of a past that does not conform to the reality on the ground anymore. Second, Prime Minister Narendra remains genuinely popular. Prime Minister Meloni mentioned during her visit to India that Narendra is the most popular leader in the world, and international and Indian opinion polls back that up. Narendra's popularity, combined with the severe democratic erosion that has occurred in recent years, should make the general election next year a cakewalk for the ruling BJP. In all probability, the BJP is here to stay, and India seems to be too important a partner in the Indo-Pacific as well as in economic terms for Western governments to even mildly criticize the current regime. Significantly, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak hardly defended the BBC after the Narendra's governments raided its Indian offices. This seems to be the cost of doing business with today's India going along with the world's largest democracy mantra and uncritically accepting India's own claim to be the mother of democracy as its G20 presidency slogan says. This is published on 24th March 2023. What is the status of Indian democracy is being explained here. This is the opinion of the author, and this is not the opinion of the reader. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share as much as possible so that people will come to know about the true state of affairs of India. Thanks for watching.